First, I'm going to talk a little bit about. Hi, guys. Welcome to the Stylized Digital Portrait workshop or demo. My name is memeruizcruz, and I'm an illustrator. And today I will walk you through my render workflow. I'm going to share with you how I paint my characters and portraits. And hopefully, you will walk away with some tools that you can use in your own illustrations. So, first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the workflow. I'm going to explain how it works. And then I will do like a very short and simple demo so you can understand the basics of it. And then I will just walk you through my whole process from how I pick a picture as a reference photo until I finish the render. Of course, today we only have an hour, maybe two. So this one will not be enough time for me to finish the whole illustration. But I actually think this is a good thing. You can see that actually it takes time to do an illustration. It's not as easy as it looks in the little square in front of you. Sometimes when you are like just navigating in Instagram or in Pinterest, you can, at least for me, this happens all the time. I start just like getting a little bit depressed and frustrated because a bunch of people are doing such a amount of amazing things, and then it looks like it's easy because you just see this little square in front of you, but you have no idea how much time it actually takes to create an illustration, to work on it, research. Like this can be very time consuming and very like high effort, and you don't have any idea about this. So I think it's going to be good for you to see how much I will struggle with it, how I will go back and forth, and how shitty it can be actually if I don't spend too much time on it. So, but the whole idea is not for me to make a pretty illustration; it's for you to learn how I work, and hopefully that you can use it in your own stuff. So I don't want to teach you how to draw like me, just to give you my own tools so you can then take whatever you consider useful and make your own stuff, use it in your own style. This is a very flexible and versatile workflow. It's really good for editing stuff afterwards. Like if you want to change like the color of a shirt or the color of the hair or add details and take away details, you can do it after when the whole thing is finished. So how this workflow actually works? You can do this in Photoshop, you can do it in Fresco, you can do it in Procreate. You don't. It's not attached to a specific software. Of course, I'm going to do it in Photoshop. So this is the software that I use. But if the application in which you work has layers, you can do this. So how does it work? So you have a color base. I'm going to share. I'm sharing with you my screen. I hope. Yes. So it all starts with the design, like you see here. You draw, you have a character, you have a prop, you have a background, whatever you want to like paint. Then the first step is like you build a color base that you download this file, so you can actually render with me in real time if you want to, or you can just render your own stuff. No problem about that. So you start with a color base, and then on top of this color base, you're going to start like building up values. You start to going, you will start to add shadows and lights and effects. And the beautiful thing about this workflow is that you can actually at any step of this process, you can edit like any of these steps. You can edit individual shadows. You can edit individual lights. You can edit your flat colors. So this is how it's going to be. I'm going to walk you through my line work, then how I do the color base. Then I will talk to you about the selections, how I create selections, because this is like it is like a investment of like 10, 15 minutes sometimes at the beginning, and it's kind of like time consuming, but it's really time saving eventually when you actually start like rendering and putting in values. And then you can actually start like rendering and adding shadows on top of your basic color. Then you have some lights. Then you have like more lights and enhanced colors, and then you have like your final illustration. This is not the way it's going to end today, but hopefully we can have something that is like kind of like decent. So let's start first with a small demo. So this is a Photoshop normal. Oh, so let me see. Yes, this is being recorded, and this is it's going to be in the stream for, I think it's 16 days. I'm not sure. I'm new to Twitch, so I'm not sure about the amount of days that this is going to be available, but it is going to be available like for a few days, and then I guess it's gone. I'm ignorant in Twitch. I'm not fluent. So, okay, let's create a new file so you can actually see the whole thing from the beginning. Usually it's good to have like a background which is a medium color so you don't get overwhelmed by the like a dark, super dark background or light background. Then you create the first layer, and you say, imagine that you are drawing here in Photoshop instead of another software. So you say, okay, I'm gonna do a little box. This is gonna be my drawing. I want to draw a box. So then I create another layer underneath. Me personally, I like some. You can paint with a brush, for instance. You can, let's make this, make it green. You can do this. You can start like painting and filling this box. This is time consuming. I personally don't do that. I use the selection tool here, the lasso tool, and depending on if it's a curve design or a straight lines design, it's like either the, you know what I mean, the wiggly lasso or the other lasso. So this is my color base. I can, at this point, I can say, okay, I'm going to make my lines a bit lighter so I can see what is happening underneath actually. And I want to add a shadow. I want the shadow to be hitting the object from, let's say, like top left view. Okay, so let's put here color. Don't worry, you're not going to be watching me render a green cube for an hour, but this is a good thing for you to understand the basic concept of the workflow. So here it starts. This is my color base. I want to add a shadow. What do? I come down here to adjustment layers, and I add a hue saturation adjustment layer. I'm going to move this here to the right so you can see it better. And I'm also going to move this whole thing to the right because this is actually kind of annoying. Yes, so info, yes, properties also here. Good. So yeah, this is the adjustment layer. And here you can see the properties of this layer. So here I can make it darker. Like if I move it to the left, it goes darker. If I move it to the right, it goes brighter. So you can create a shadow or you can create a light with this kind of layer. At this moment, I'm going to create a shadow. So second step is create a clipping mask. I'm going to clip this layer to the object down below. So I'm going to right click, create clipping mask. And now this shadow only affects the object below, like this, right? So the next step, like you can see in the properties window, how it actually changes if I click in the mask than if I click in the actual layer. So here I can edit like these lights. In the mask, what I can do is I can invert the mask, right? So black means it's hiding the whole thing, and white means it's showing what the whole thing. So I'm going to invert it, I'm going to hide it, and then I'm going to click in the mask, and I'm going to paint, see? So whatever is white is going to start revealing this layer, what is in this layer, right? So this is the beginning. Let's name layers. It's good to name layers because otherwise it's going to be wild. So shadow. Okay, so then let's create now a light. Let's do the same thing. I'm going to adjustment layers, hue saturation, and I'm going to increase the brightness. You can do it in this way, or you can just keep it as it is, like 0, 0, 0, and you can come here and set the blending mode to screen, which actually lightens up the drawing. Okay, however you want to do it. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create a clipping mask, and now it's only affecting the cube, right? So I'm going to invert the mask, and then I'm going to paint. Oh, this is horrible. The screen is not working for this color, so let's just put it like normal, and then actually increase the brightness for real. So something like this. So now you have a light, and you have a shadow. So this is the base of this workflow. You are going to create shadows and lights with the same adjustment layer. Another thing you can do, let's hide the light for a moment. Another thing you can do here in the mask is like you can actually adjust the feathering of the edge of the mask. So you can create like a blur effect. So even if I'm drawing with a hard brush, it's just taking it like it's blurred, right? So if I do this, if I take it with the feathering, let's go back to hard edge. I never use this, but some people actually like it, so I'm just telling you so you can use it if you need to. Another way in which I actually do the shadows, before we move on, is that I don't paint so much. Or actually, what I do is I create selections. So what I do is with the lasso tool, I actually paint in the selection, and then invert the selection, and then erase here, right? So what happens if I want to add another value? Because right now it's just like one value, it's just dark, it's all in, right? So let's imagine that I want to create like a second face of the cube, and it's going to be 50% brighter, right? So I select the area, and here, in the color of the brush, instead of like completely white, which is showing everything that is in the layer, or completely black, which is like showing nothing, I'm gonna pick gray, a medium gray. And then if I paint like that, it's gonna show me like half of what is in the layer, right? So I deselect, and now we have a cube basically. So it's a really simple workflow. You can have as many layers as you want. I usually work with 2 shadows and 1 light. But okay, let me show you. Let's say I want this cube to be blue, right? Like I said before. What I do is I lock the transparency of a layer. I pick a new color. Okay, I want it blue. So now it's gonna be blue. As you can see, I'm just painting. I'm not caring about the edge because the transparency of the layer is locked here. If I unlock it and I start drawing, I extend the whole thing. We don't want that. So here it is. We can have this to be like basically like a tiger with stripes if you want. Just the beauty of this workflow is like you have the values that you have on top of this are actually affecting what is underneath. So you don't have to think about, oh, how does this blue looks when it's darker, when it's in the shadows, and then you have to pick a blue and paint it darker. You just have like a flat color like this, and then on top of it you build your values. So this is the base, the principle of the workflow. I'm gonna check the comments and see if you actually get it. You need to get this in order to understand the rest. Otherwise, it's gonna be just like mumble jumble for you guys. So, okay, I'm using Photoshop. So for those who don't know it, I'm using Photoshop. I use Sketchbook Pro for sketching and painting. I render in Photoshop. I don't like to sketch in Photoshop personally. That's like a personal thing. Like it is for me just like easier to sketch in Sketchbook Pro. But that's like a personal taste. Oh, thank you. Very nice people. Moonlight 393. Okay, are you guys buffering? Are you guys seeing this in good timing, or is this like okay? Cool. Yes, this is very different. Like in general, people tend to in general people tend to paint in Photoshop. Like even for shadows, like what people do usually is they create a layer on top, and then they start like they put like multiply setting to multiply, and then they start like painting on top of it. But it's really hard to actually edit it later. So what you can do, I'm going to delete this layer now. The beauty of this workflow is that you can come to this shadow here, to this layer, and you can say, you know what? I'm going to now make it super saturated. I'm going to actually make the shadow more saturated, and maybe I want to make it like another color. Maybe I'm going to colorize it, and I'm just going to make it green or blue, or so you can control the color of your shadows. So this is actually really useful to editing things, right? It has its downsides. It's kind of like hard to get used to it. Like it's easy to learn to use it, but it's hard to get used to it because it kind of like it's ugly at the beginning. So if you feel like your rendering is kind of getting like muddy and ugly, this happens. You'll see. You just have to get used to it. So okay, let me go. Yes, you can rewatch the video later. Like I think I'm saving this video on Twitch, and you can watch it for I think it's like 17 days. Again, guys, if anyone knows, please tell everyone else because I truly don't know how many days it's gonna be online. What is the difference between selecting colorize versus not when changing hues? Let's try that with a gray layer. So I'm going to create on top of this a gray color and just make it gray. No, let's make it a bit whiter so it's not so okay, just like this. I think the brighter it is, the harder it is to get in the color. So, and now let's go to the not colorize. This is not colorized, so nothing is basically changing here. Not much actually. It's like the shadow is getting slightly warmer, but it's not that much. If I hit colorize, it actually changes the color underneath, like really in a dramatic way. You have to try this stuff out. Like what works for you, what doesn't work for me. So for you, like I remember when someone like taught me this workflow, I was taught to use the blurring, the feathering of the mask, and I really didn't like that because I didn't have control over the edge. And I like to control my edges. I like to have some hard edge in the cheekbones and then some like soft edge. And if I blur everything, I have no control over it. So you have to adjust it to do whatever you want to do with it. Colorize, not colorize. Colorize, I would say, is very like, stylized and it goes really graphical. So if you want to go there, go there. Yeah. You can, when you have your selections, you can, let's see, this is the light. This light sucks. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to create a new light. I'm going to make it like really bright. I'm going to clip a mask. And I don't want to stay here too much because really you don't want to see me like rendering a box, but I'm going to invert the mask. And again, one way you can do things is just like painting with a brush. Here's the beauty of this. You can do this with a brush, with a really textured brush, right? Something like this. Or even with a rake. Or with particles. I really love to use particles, right? Or you can use it as I usually actually do with a selection. And just, you can just like use the pocket thingy and just like, boop, plain color, so whatever you want to do. What brushes do I use? I think this is the most asked question ever I have ever heard, but I can show you. Let me just quickly show you. Let me hide this hideous cube. So that's an easy one. Here are my brushes. Like here you can see. Can you see them well? Here you can see them. I have I hardly use all of them. The ones that I use are the hard one, which is kind of hard to believe, but it is. Like this is one of the most used brushes. The must use for sure is the soft brush. I combine all the time selection tool. I just use a selection and then I paint with the soft brush. Let me show you. instead of like telling you, let me just show you. I'm going to create a hue saturation layer, like a shadow. I'm going to invert. I'm going to paint here, right? So this is me painting with a soft brush in the layer, right? If I do a selection, this is my selection, and I use the brush, then I have control over the edge. I can do something like this, and then deselect it, and then I have a hard edge around it, but then a soft transition between values. And this is like, a lot of people ask this sometimes, like, how do you have some hard edges and then soft transitions? It's like this. It's using selection tool and your basic soft brush, like nothing special about it. It's just this soft brush with selection tool. You can also, like, this is my most used brush, then hard one, then earlier I used, I don't know, a time ago I used this a lot because I really like sometimes like this battery feeling of it. But lately I'm just going faster with the selection and the soft brush. Like, it's just really faster. Another brush that I use a lot is this one, a rough texture brush, and I use it mainly for adding structure into my rendering. Imagine like I have this in this hue saturation layer. I created this a gradient, right? And now I want to add texture to it. What I do is I use the Alt button. So I'm going to see how I pick the value in the layer, right? I'm just picking the value in the layer, right? And then I'm blending with this brush, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm blending the values of a transition, and then it looks like it has like more structure, and it looks more, for some people, more interesting, more rich, So I use this brush for that, for blending values, and I also use it for adding color variation in the flat color face, which I'm going to show you later, if I actually get out of this cube at some point. So soft brush, hard brush, rough for textures and blending values, and I really use a lot lately. I'm using a lot like these two rakes. I use this rake here. Let me set I use this rake usually for hair, and this other rake, which is more graphical, but I really like it. And finally, the other one that I use quite frequently is these particles, and I use it for the most weird things, like for freckles in the face. So, but again, I'm in the middle of my workflow, so maybe this will change in 2 days or in 2 months, so don't take me too seriously. Yes, the thing is like, do you use an Intus or a Cintiq? Oh, I'm using a Cintiq. A Cintiq is really different from an Intus. Like, I used to work in Intus, and it was hard, man. It was like you had to do like a lot of like strokes to get right the one that you actually wanted, and a Cintiq is just like you are looking at what you're doing, right? So, but I'm pretty sure there are other. Cintiq is quite expensive. Like, there are other tablets in the market that are actually have a lower price. So, but I would if you were an art student or a professional, I would definitely advise to get a Cintiq or anything with a screen that you can draw on. So for now, for now you're working with 3 values. But do you repeat the process for all the values you can find in a human face, even simplify? So I'm working only with 3 values. Oh my god, I think I'm going to be stuck in this cube for a while. I'm only working for 3 values now, but I can actually, okay, let's erase everything here. Let's make a circle. Let's fill it with gray. Let's fill it with white so you can see the whole value structure. So, okay, let's make this layer really dark. See, it's really dark, right? So I'm going to go from, with a soft brush, you can see I'm going for darker to lighter, right? So I'm just going with a lot of patience, I can do this, and then you can have, and then maybe the terminator here, and some bounce light there. It's not perfect, but you get the idea that you have like a range of values. It's not like I'm just simplifying it so you can understand the workflow itself, but you can actually draw all the ranges of values in your adjustment layer, not just 2 or 3. I'm going to talk about simplifying your value structure later on when rendering portraits, because I do that. I do simplify the value structure, so it makes my life easier. Because earlier, when I wanted to render a face, I was going like all over the place, and I had way too much weird jumps in value. So, but I'm going to talk about that later. And let's go out of this circle, and let's go to actually do something about with people, faces, and stuff like that, right? How do you do the curved lights? What do you mean? Well, how do you do the curved highlights? You mean in the portraits or here, what I'm doing now? Yes, it's a Tonko brush, yes. Okay, let's go for the process. So I'm going to have some water first. Let's go for the process, otherwise it's going to be just boring. So usually what I have, when I have like nothing to draw, like if I don't have an idea for an illustration, or if I don't have like a project that I'm working on, and I just want to draw anything, for me at least it's easier to just like draw a portrait. I love to do portraits, I love to draw people, I stare at people in the subway a lot, it's weird. because I just like their people's faces. How like, oh, this guy has this big nose. I would like to draw that, you know. Or oh my God, look at these people. How this person has like the eyes. You can see the sphere in the eyelids, and that's actually quite interesting. So I do that a lot. I observe a lot of like people in the street and trying not to be weird about it, but yeah. And then take notes, like just like without staring at them. But yeah. So when I don't have anything to draw, I draw a portrait, and for that I have a board in Pinterest full of just like inspiring portraits of people that I find interesting because they have like a really defined bone structure, or they have just like an amazing body structure in the pic. The photo is really good. You can see like the shadow shapes in the you can see the bones, you can see the planes of the face. Sometimes it's just because someone is very peculiar as a person, like they have like maybe a big nose, or but usually it's because of the photo itself. It has a nice body structure, or it has like really nice colors, or it's just like an interesting face that I want to draw. So that is the first thing I would advise you to do. Like be clear about what you want to get from this drawing. Like when I want to do a color study, I would go for a weird. I mean, I don't have even here like a weird uh, light. You know, like neon lights or this like backlight, and then I don't have anything here like this because this board is just for basically value structure. This board is for interesting people and just like really nice photos with a great like shadow shapes and lights and facial like very structured faces, right? So, but if you want to do like a value study, then pick a photo probably in black and white. Don't get distracted yourself with colors, at least not in the first step, and just choose a photo. Okay, let's try to check some of this. Oh, they are also good. I love like to just see people's faces. Oh man. So here you can see like I cannot if I do this you will see it dark, but you can see in general like when you have like the here like the shadow shape, like it's almost like a triangle here, and then you see underneath like if you would trace this photo in Photoshop, you can easily almost draw like the shapes of all the shadows that you want to draw. So this is a really good. It's pretty helpful when you're going to study value. So the first thing that I do is just like scroll here, usually for half an hour, 20 minutes, and say, I want to draw this picture. Or I just open the board and I start just like doodling, like just hide this. I start doodling. I am very ashamed to say that I don't have, there are some methods to draw faces like, the Loomis head and this and that. I have no idea. I could never work with a Loomis head like this. I don't know if you're talking about, I know about this, but you know this thing that you have like the sphere and then the vertical line and then the horizontal line and then you have like the side of the face and then you do this and then and all that stuff. I don't use that. For me, this is like really constrains me, and I find it that usually the skull is too small and then I have to change it, and it's just like it doesn't help me at all. So I don't have like a super defined structure. So what I do in general is like sometimes I just start like I don't know. Sometimes it's like what I like about this picture here is like how the head is almost like how you can see almost like a circle here, not the Loomis circle, just this roundness here. I really like that, and almost like how there is like a circle between the cranium and the cheeks here, you know. So I like that. So I say okay, and I also like the shape of the hair. Like the hair is doing like this. I like that. So I'm going to just start drawing, and I'm taking advantage of the fact that I'm drawing digitally, so there's no pressure for mistakes. If I make a mistake, I just go on set. I just move stuff around. Like who cares? Like no one is watching. I mean, you're watching now, but you understand what I'm saying. So I'm just like two lines that are actually useful for me is like this line here, the symmetry line of the face, yes, and then this line here, which for me is not marking the height of the eyes or the height of the eyebrows. It's just the angle of the face. If the face is tilted, then you have to do something like this, right? Like you are just like giving information about the inclination of the head, either vertically or like towards you. Maybe it's like this, you know. So it's just for a mental reference for you. So, whoops, too much zoom. So yeah, I like the hair here, and then she has like a big forehead, so I'm going to exaggerate that. I don't want I don't want you distracted too much with how I design my portraits, because that's about style. Like that's just the way I draw. That's very personal, and you shouldn't be so interested in how I draw. It's more like the thought process behind it, and then you will draw whatever you want to draw. So this is not a lesson of like to learn to draw like me, because I draw. You can see this is shitty as it. It's more like giving you tools so you can actually understand the thinking behind it, and you can actually use it for yourself. Actually, I'm zooming so you can see the drawing, but I actually draw very far away. Usually, it's more like tiny, so I can see. I have a better overview of like proportions and distances and things like that. So, whoops. So I here, sorry, here in this stage, I do mark sometimes the shadow plane, like the planes of the face, because I already know what I'm going to do in the render. So I don't need like a super detailed drawing. I don't want to put values. I don't want to make a pretty drawing. What I want to do though is I want to mark some parts of the face that I really want to get there right. Like is the change of planes between the forehead and the side like a curve or a straight line, for instance? In this specific example, it should be a curve because you have here like this is a cue. The contour of the portrait is giving you the clue that this is a curved surface. Look at this guy. This guy, on the other hand, he's so pretty. He has a very interesting, like super big eyes, and hair. His eyes are like you can render both eyelids. It's really interesting. But forget about that for a moment. So forget about his face. What I want to talk about is his face, like his forehead. So here you have a straight like shape of the forehead, right? So it's not like this. It's a straight line, right? Even though you don't see the edge, you can see the shape of the shadow, right? So yeah, keep that in mind. Okay, let's go. So what I do in general is I just like start like drawing. Okay, yeah, blah blah. And say, okay, yeah, I like this guy's profile. I don't know how many times I've drawn this guy already, and every time it's different, by the way. It's not like I have like a way of drawing him, but it's just a strong profile. I love it. Some things that you have to keep in mind, though, even though you are doing a stylized portrait, there are some landmarks in the face that you should kind of like follow through. You shouldn't like violate it too much. Like for instance, the ear usually goes. If you do this line here, the ear goes in the middle of behind the middle of a neck. If I make this line in the middle of the neck, the ear goes behind that. Usually also a little bit tilted. The eyes usually are in the middle of the whole head, like from top of the head to the chin. Your eyes are usually in the middle. It doesn't look like, I know in general it doesn't look like that because the hair really tricks you, but it usually goes there. And if you kind of like, if that changes too much, you notice it, So, okay, do you have any questions about drawing? So I can go to, I'm a mess when making my structures because I can never fully follow a drawing method. Same. Feels good to see a pro doing the same. Yes, I sometimes I just start like doodling and then I was like, oh my God, this eye is too big, I have to rescale it. And it's okay. Like, that is one of the, I think it's ridiculous to just want to nail the drawing in the first pass because it's like, it's digital, man. You can make mistakes, It's okay to make mistakes. I mean, I wish I could have like, I would have learned in an academy and then I would be like, nail it just at once, but I don't. And then when I stylize, this is very personal. You can do whatever you want, but I do like to mark even harder planes that they are in the portrait. I want to say, okay, I want his cheekbone to be really straight and really angular, and I want to push like this shape of the nose like a lot, And I want to define, even though he doesn't have so well defined the top of the nose, and the bottom of the nose. I do like to define like when I draw a nose. Usually, this is so weird because these are the planes that I use, and I know this is not academic. So basically what I'm doing is like I'm defining this squarish bridge for the nose, this part. Then this part here for me is still the nose, and I know it's not, but it's still, which is like between the eyebrows. And then you have like the bridge, which is like the sides, like this part here, which is usually the transition, right? You have the bridge, and then you have the lower plane, and then I have like the nostrils. Those are my main planes for the nose, usually. Sometimes it changes if the nose goes down, like if the person has this part a little bit like, it has more planes into it, you can do it. But in general, those are the main planes that I use for noses. How do you know which elements you can exaggerate and which you should keep them as is? That's personal. That's actually style. Like I don't actually know. Sometimes I just try out stuff and it doesn't work, and then I have to go back and just redo the whole thing. I remember I was doing a drawing, and I accidentally just like did this. I just distorted with perspective tool, and I was like, I like it. I'm gonna just leave it like that. And it's an accident. You just have to be able to appreciate accidents, and depending on your intention, then you have to decide if you want to keep it or leave it. This is a lot of trial and error. Like my style is not a formula that one day I sit and decide how to do it. I just draw a lot and decide what I like and what I don't like and keep it or leave it. Okay, so let's go to Photoshop to actually show you the workflow that I should be doing already. So I'm going to do a study for this portrait. So I'm going to keep this portrait open so we can see it. That ball. Let's do this so you can see it. Let me do this. Yeah. Okay. So this is a portrait. So if you remember, I just thought of a joke. If you remember what I said before, the first step is going to be just adding colors, right? Just create a color base. So this is my color base, like this. But let me just explain you how I do it. Otherwise, it looks like magic, and I think it's good for you to see the whole process. This is not magic. This is like really hard. Ta-da. So color base, yes. So I start with this. I start with the silhouette. I use the lasso tool, not the straight one, but the not the polygonal, but the wiggly one. And but you can use the polygonal one. I remember I did one study, the Max study. I was a bit lazy that day. I was like, you know what, I'm going to do everything with the polygonal lasso tool, and it was not that bad. You know, it was like, because when you use this lasso, you have to be more precise, and if you're using an intus, it's going to be a pain in the ass. You know, so what I do is like I just create a selection. Of course, I use adding or subtracting here in the. So I create the big shape. I use the drawing as a reference. And also an important thing is like the focal point, sorry, of the portrait. For me, it's the face in general. So I don't pay so much attention to the dressing or the hair, unless the hair is actually important for me. If the person has like a super awesome, fabulous hair. So I create a selection and I fill the selection with the bucket. So I just choose a color, okay, and let's say, and I do this. That's my first step, and then I do start for my color base. I separate some layers. Like I need the hair to be separated. I need the clothing to be separated. I need the eyebrows, the lips, the eyes. So I create a layer. I do the clipping mask thingy, and then I say, okay, with selection tool again, and just quickly do this. So that's my hair, and because they're not touching each other, I can also do in the same layer the dress. This is not it's going to be a problem. No? So the dress is yellow, but not the hair. So now the hair is, let's say, it's brownish, kind of like this. Another important thing is like I use the reference as an inspiration, but I don't use it. I'm not doing like an actual color study in this case. You know, I'm not trying to make it identical to the photo. I sometimes exaggerate some colors, saturate them, or just change the temperature of the brown. If maybe the photo has like a grayish brown, I want to make it reddish, so I do that. I don't. It's not an exercise of. It's fun. It's just fun. I don't want to be super like specific about it. You know, like I create another layer and then selection and do the eyes, and you understand the concept. So basically, I'm creating layer after layer of elements that I want to have separate. Why do I want them separated? So let me just show you. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to show you the actual layers of the drawings. So this is my silhouette, right? Then I add, the freckles, the whole layer just for freckles. It's okay. Then I add the hair and the dress, the clothing. Then I have like the teeth separated from the lips, Then I have in the same layer the face, the eyes, the lips, because they're not touching each other. It's okay. So and then the iris and then the lashes. There's a lot of layers for just one face. But why do I do this? Because I want to create selections afterwards. So what I do is I say, okay, I want to now create a selection for the skin, just for the skin. And I say Control or Command and click in the silhouette. And I have now a selection of the whole silhouette, right? And if I keep Control or Command pressed, and then I press Alt, I will take away whatever is in this layer. So I'm taking away from the selection the hair and the dress. And now I have the skin. So this is why I separate my base color in different layers. Or imagine that if I want to render the eyes, I just click here in the eyes. And I'm going to take away the lashes because I don't want. And I do that. So this is a really easy way to have access to your layers. But also because if you want to change, imagine that you want to change the color of her eyes. Okay, you know what? I'm going to iris. I'm going to lock my transparency for this layer so I can paint over it. And I can make them like yellow. I can do that just like that, It's that easy. And you can make her, you know what? I want her hair to have, why not? Like yellow stripes. And that's that. Like you can do this. Like it's so easy, You can change any color. You can change the color of the clothing. You can, you know what? Now the clothing is going to be red. And I just do this. And it's that easy. So this is why I'm separating things in layers. So I can later on change things like really fast. So this is the first step. You have now a color base. What do you do after you have a color base? Let me check. Yes. The lasso is really good for creating clean shapes. This is why, like a lot of people ask, like, why do you have so crisp, like clear shape drawings? It's the lasso tool. It's not me. It's the lasso tool. It's magical. So okay, once I have my color base, I have a second step, which is I'm going to now add color variation to my color base. Because you know what? When you see someone, their face is not just like pink or brown. You have like, some people have like usually these zones a bit redder. Or if you're looking to a wall, it's never just like one color. If it's used, it'll have like some color variation within the same color range. So let me just show you. So for that, I have to lock the transparency of all the layers. I'm going to do this very quick. And I'm going to pick the same color. This is important. And then I'm going to just move it slightly in this part. So I don't want to change the value. I don't want to change the duration. I'm just going to change the hue a little bit. I'm going to make it redder. And then with the soft brush, which I use all the time, I'm going to do this, just like across the cheeks and the nose. Because I want to. She doesn't have it in the portrait, but I actually want to do it. So you can do that too. Or maybe not, but it's a thing you can do. For the hair, you can see, if I zoom, that let me take away the lines. I actually did some color variation with the rake. I used this brush, like this, and I took a color and I started doing things like this, see? And this adds life because to the drawing and the structure, because the hair is not just one flat color, So in this way, when you're finished, you can have a rich, already kind of pretty, except for the dark teeth, like kind of like drawing already. Another thing that I do in this step before I start rendering is I break the edge of some parts. So at the beginning, the selection of the hair, let me just take away this mask. See, this is the hair, and then I just erase some parts because for me, the edges are really important because like some things have like a sharp like line between them, but some things are not. Like no one has a hairline that is just like clear cut, like a line, unless you have like a fringe, Usually there is like a gradient between the skin and the hair, and you want to emphasize this, so you break the edge. How do you do that? Sometimes I create a mask on the layer because I don't want to destroy the original drawing, and I just erase in the mask. So this is what I do. Erase, select this tool, and then I do this, something like this, Like, and start breaking the shape a little bit. It adds detail. It makes also the shape more interesting, So, and I do the same for the silhouette. My first pass of the silhouette was really rough, and then I came and I did this like brush, and I started like doing some like more details to the hair, so the hair looks more natural. Doesn't look like it's like a wig, So those are two important steps in the color base. Just add color variation if you want to, and break the edge of some parts that you consider important according to your design. In my case, usually it's the hair in the eyebrows and the hair in the actual hair. So let me go through the comments and see if anyone is. How long will the recording be available? Oh my god, I have no idea. I suck at Twitch. I think it's like 12 days, 14 days, 17 days. Please, can someone ask? I think it's 14 days. Awesome. So 14 days, and then it's gonna be like gone. Thankfully, I think this is yeah. So da-da-da-da. It is. Is this a Photoshop brush or a custom? No. This is a soft brush. You can just come here. Oh, you mean the rake? The rake is a custom brush, but it's not mine. I usually don't do my brushes. This is a Kyle. Oh, what's the name of this guy? Kyle T. Webster, I think it is his name. He has a bunch of brushes, like really cool ones. And after trying like 1,000 of them, I kind of like narrowed them down to a bunch, and then even less and less, and then I only use a few of them. So, okay, let's go for the second step. Now the render actually begins. No, but before the render begins, actually, selections. Okay, this looks weird. Really is, but I'm just trying to show you how I create the selections and how I divide and why I divide the face in these planes. And this is very related to the way I draw and I render. You don't have to do it like that, but you can use the same philosophy to use it in your favor. So I'm going to show you now. Let me show you. These are my selections. Like this here, like these channels here, those are my selections. So you can see I'm selecting the skin. Because sometimes if I want to saturate the skin a little bit more, in general, when I start like doing this, my skin tone usually, I don't know why, it tends to be at the end, it looks just pale and like a zombie. So I need to go back and then create an overlay layer and just paint on top of it and like pump the colors a little bit up. So I separate the skin, but I also want to separate like the face and then some parts of the face and then some smaller part of the face. And I really start like subdividing planes of the head. So this is almost like an engineering work, like, oh, this is gonna be like the forehead and I want this zone of the face to be separated. And then the side plane, and then the neck. And this is like time consuming. I usually take like 10 or 20 minutes doing this, but then it's just like time saving thing, The file that we're going to download, the PSD, has all this stuff. So you can check it out with like more time. So, and these are the selections. Like you can see there's a lot of subdivisions here. As I said, for the nose, you have like the top bridge, the sides of the bridge, the down plane, and then the nostrils. I have the upper lip and the lower lip. And I have like the cheeks plane. Then I have, I don't know how this is called in English, but this part of the eyes and the forehead and the side, and there's a lot of stuff going on here. So those are my selections. Then I start actually rendering. So how do I do that? Let me just show you quickly. Okay. So once I have, this is my flat colors. You don't need to watch, to take a look at this anymore. So I usually just close this folder because it doesn't make any sense. And then I create, as I said before at the beginning, I create a hue saturation adjustment layer. I make it darker. It's already masked. But you can see like how it looks dark, but it looks like muddy, it looks like gray. So what I'm going to do is like I'm going to increase slightly the saturation. We don't want to do this. This is just weird. Just a little bit. Just doesn't look so weird. And what I also like to do is I like to make the shadow. If I move it to the left a little bit, it's gonna be warmer. It's gonna be a little bit reddish. I like that too. In this case, I'm not using as a reference the photo for the color of the shadow because I'm not interested in that right now. I'm using more like the value. I want to match the darkest value in her face. So I'm going to move this like this. Oh, okay. I like this. I'm going to keep this one. I'm going to invert the mask. And now I'm going to start rendering in this mask. And I'm going to use just this brush. The first thing that I like to render is the occlusion shadow. I don't know if you have ever heard about this term. Like some people call it ambient occlusion, occlusion shadow, occlusion. It is basically the shadow that does not depend on the light direction. So basically anything that is like contact between two objects, overlapping holes like your nostrils, like the hole of a nose, the hole of a mouth, you know, so the hole of the ears, like underneath the neck, independently from the light source. This is going to be always kind of like dark. And this kind of shadow gives a lot of like the sense of volume. So that's what I do in the shadow is I basically define the planes of the head. Let's do that. So I usually start for the neck. I'm going to say, okay, where's the neck here? Neck. Oh, please, when you create your selections, save them because otherwise it's going to be wild. If you don't know how to do it, you just create your selection and you go to select here and you go to, oh my God, what is this? Because I do it with, save selection here. I use shortcuts, so save selection. And then save selection. And then if you want to load a selection, you can go to select, load selection, or that's time consuming. If I do this, let's see, load selection, what is going to happen? Oh my God. It's like, oh, you have this list and you have to remember, oh my God, the face, the neck, where is it? You know, I don't like this. What I actually do is I keep my channels open here so I can actually see the selections. So also I have the name, but I also have a visual cue of it. And the way I select it is I click Command or Control and just click in here. So in this sense, I have my selection, see? So in this case, I'm gonna take the neck. I also hide the selection in general. I don't like to see these margin ants when I'm drawing. This is really distracting. So what I do is I go to select. Is it in select, show, selection, hide selections? Command H is what I can tell you. View here, oh my God, show, selection edges. So I just Command H, Control H, and then I hide it. So it's there. I can still like paint on it, but I'm not distracted by the margin ants. So what I do is I kind of like do this. Okay, now I have a nice separation between the head and the neck. Next step, the lids. Right, I have the eyelids. I don't like to render around the eyebrows or the eyelashes because I can change them later on. So I create the planes of the face without considering facial hair. So I'm going to hide it again, and then I'm going to, the eyebrows are like basically like a spheres. So what I'm going to do is I'm just, with this same brush, I'm going to just very gently paint and create the sensation of volume, of the roundness of this sphere. And then let's go for face side. Okay, let's define the side of the face. Just do like this. It's really fairly simple. Nose 1, nose 2. Nose 2 is important. Like those are the bridges. Let me activate the line so you can see, because I have it in my head, but you have to see it. Okay. Right? And now let's go for the bottom of the nose. And then that part is a bit darker, right? Because that's like, it's usually in shadow. And then I can also just ever so slightly, a little bit here, just to make a difference between this plane and this plane. And then I'm going to go for, there's no order, it's kind of like random. I like usually start for the neck, but the rest is just like as I feel it. So here's the thing, for this occlusion thingy, I don't use the photo reference so much because I want to make my own planes. Like you can see that the top of the side of the cheek, she doesn't have like a huge difference in the plane, but I want to do that. So in general, that's the workflow. This is how you do the occlusion. You go part by part. I'm not going to finish it, but you go part by part, and you basically think, oh, is this a hole? Then this has occlusion. Is this like going forward? Then it doesn't have so much occlusion. It's kind of like the principle for that. The next step in this render workflow, it is the basic shadow. So for the basic shadow, then I have to look at the study. So let's take a look at it. Okay, so this is what we have. This is how occlusion looks when you're done. Kind of, at least when I'm done. So I have my points, and I say, okay, now I want to do like the actual lighting of the photo. So what I do is create again. This is boring at this point, right? Whoops. Oh, this happens because I have selection active. So I'm going to deselect, command set, deselect and create layer again. Make it darker, a bit saturated, and invert the layer mask. Okay. There are several ways that you can do this, like how you can tackle the shadow. You can use your selections, or you can just use your, like this brush. Sometimes what I do is I do, let me show you how sometimes I do it. I just use the hard brush, and I create like a basic, like a simple shadow structure for my shadows. I say, okay, I can see that her lower lid is really, it's like there's like some shadow there, and also like, I know it's not this dark, but I'm just simplifying the value structure, so I don't want to get distracted by bounce lights and nice subtle transition. And this is just wild. I just do this, and even here I'm like, okay, I'm going to choose, forget about the dress for a moment. I'm going to choose a mid-tone, because this side is not as dark as the other side, so you can use like a light, dark, and mid-tone. You know what? This is like a basic, like a simplified shadow structure. Like for me, it's enough. So when I have this, what I do is I go to the soft brush, and then I just blend a little bit, right? So I say, okay, you know what? The forehead has a little bit of like shadow. I can see that it's kind of like a nice transition there. And also, this is not such a straight line, so I kind of like blend a little bit, and so on and so on. You understand the concept? And once it's blend, I go with the structure with this brush, and then I just keep blending. This takes a lot of work. It's time consuming. I kind of like stopped doing this because I was experimenting with selections, and I actually like it more. It's faster for me. It's like it has to do more with my taste. But this is a way you can do it. You know, you just like stamp like a very simple body structure, and then dissolve a little bit, and then actually zoom, be more careful, and finish the job. So we're not going to do that now. What I do for this is I take the soft brush, I go to my selections, and then I go, okay, this is like a mid-tone, so I'm gonna like just the shadow here, and then I go to this part of the face. Okay, this part is really in shadow, this one not so much. Hair nose, like underneath the nose is not so dark, but I want to do it dark, so I just want to emphasize some planes of the face that the picture doesn't have, but I'm kind of guessing that we all have, and I'm going to exaggerate it because it's stylized, it's not realistic. So another thing that you can do with selections is like you can add or subtract from the selection. You can just control click here, and then if you keep the control or the command press and you press alt, you deselect this piece from here. So I deselect the top part, and now I have the cheeks. So this is really useful. So I hide it, and then I make it like this. And this is, again, it's time consuming. I think you get the point of it. It's like there's no mystery to it. It's just like spending time doing this, like finishing the whole thing, you know. Be patient, look at your reference, try to kind of like capture the lighting that she has, you know, and try not to go too crazy with all like weird darker values in some places that you shouldn't have them. So I'm going to move on because this is just another shadow. This one is just directional shadow. For this one, you're just going to use the reference photo. So let me check. It's not boring? Oh my god, but I think it is boring. And my voice is like really going away. So I'm trying to go a bit faster, but thank you for that. So I have now my those are my shadows. I only use two layers for shadows, just occlusion and basic. And sometimes, just sometimes, what I do is I add another extra shadow. We can not have it, but let me just delete this. This is my basic shadow. Let me just hide the occlusion so you can see what did I do. So what I did with this basic shadow was emphasize some planes, some like more graphic shapes. Like see here how I basically create like a rectangle of like light, and how I kind of like mark again with the selection. Here this one I did it with this selection. Then I took the lasso and I just subtract this part, hide it, and then I use the soft brush and just like paint there, so I can have like a hard edge and then soft transition. How I decide when to use a hard transition and a soft transition, you have to watch, like observe the subject and kind of understand what you want to enhance, because this depends on the subject, on the reference, you know. So for me, for instance, what I generally do is like I keep the difference between the cheek, this part of the cheeks, the top part of the cheek and the front part of the cheek, I create a hard line there. But then between the cheek and like here, I create transition, how it goes dark, like down, like back here, you know. So that's kind of like depending on each situation. So I know people don't like to use like a soft brush, because if you don't have, if all your edges are soft, it looks like bubbly and weird. It's the combination between hard edges and soft edges that actually create contrast and makes things like interesting to look at. So you have to like use like your gut, trial error, and decide that for yourself. Sometimes I have made like really sharp selections and just like block it, and it kind of works, and sometimes it doesn't. So it depends. I'm sorry if I cannot help here. It really depends. Some people have like the bridge, for instance, like the bridge of the nose, like a nice transition here between like the side of the nose and then the cheek, and then it's a soft transition. But some people really have like a very well defined side plane of the nose, and then you have a hard edge. So it depends on the model and your intention. I really hope that helps. Next step, the light. So this is when things kind of like start getting interesting, and at this point the drawing is kind of like ugly, but then when you add light, kind of like, oh, this is not so bad. So it gets a bit better. But do not be fooled. Like the shadows are the most important part. I would say the shadows are like the bone and muscles of your drawing, and then the lights are like the makeup and the clothing. It's just like, it's not that important actually. So now the advantage of this workflow really shines. So what you can do when you're creating a light is like, let me just hide the light for a moment. You create a layer, same layer, and you say, no, you don't say anything. Let's just, oh shit, I created again with selection. Deselect, create layer. Here it is. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, this group of blending modes here kind of like darken the whole thing, and this group here kind of like brightens it, and this group here is just crazy. It's all over the place. It's usually saturation. Let's go for screen. Screen is nice because it elevates the value, makes it lighter, but it does not change so much like the colors underneath. When you go like color dodge, then it goes crazy. Then you start like seeing how the color underneath changes, and you don't want that. And also this one here. So let's keep screen is okay. Let's invert the selection, and then this really gets easy now at this point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click Control or Command, and I'm going to click here in the shadow. And what it does, as you can see with this like marching ants, it just selects whatever you draw in your mouse. It's taking it, gradients, brushes, textures, edges, everything. It just takes it, you know. And then you also take whatever you paint in occlusion with like Control and then Shift, so it adds. And now I have these two shadows that I paint now as a selection. Let me just show you how this actually. If I create a layer here, and I just paint this with this, see what happens? It's just using all the gradients. I mean, it's black, of course, it's crazy, but it's just using all the gradients and everything that I did, and it's just filling it. So this is the beauty of this workflow. So, but let's not do that. Let's not treat her poorly. So what we're going to do with this selection now is we're going to invert the selection, right? Because what is not shadow is kind of light. So we go to select, inverse, and then we have it like the opposite of it. I'm going to hide it because I cannot stand these marching ants. So Command H. Let me just hide this. And I'm just going to paint. I'm going to do this, you know? And of course, it's not as simple as just like doing this, because now it's just too pale, too bright. You have to be selective about your lights, because lights they are like focal points, right? So just like you can see her face, like she has a very nice highlight here in the cheek, here in the top, in the forehead, and a little bit in the tip of the nose and in the upper part of the lip. And you can see fairly the direction of the light. It's just like highlights are just like the light bouncing back from the source. So the light you can see is like hitting from the top right. So let's be more economical about that. Let's be more conservative, and then let's just go and paint only there, you know, like only in those places, you know, a little bit. And then you can take it actually like another brush, and you can even be more specific about it. You can just do this, you know, like a hard edge, and then maybe the top of this lid actually is nice. Here, a highlight, maybe in the lip, a highlight, maybe here, definitely in the top of the cheek. Like here I can see that the selection is kind of like, there's a lot of gradient, so I don't want to use the shadow selection. I'm going to go back to my selections and select the cheek, like this. And I'm going again to use my soft brush. Every time I use selection, I use soft brush. And I'm going to do something like this, like just very gently. I don't want to go crazy. And I'm also going to do the same for this plane of the face, like the upper lip, which I now have to first find. Okay, yeah, I found it. So I'm going to, I don't want this part to be affected by the light. But I also don't want, if I just draw here, the light, it's just going to create a weird, like a weird plane that we don't want. So what I'm going to do, and that's like another tool that you can actually use, probably you know it already, and I'm just repeating myself, but if you go here to quick edit mask, I can change the selection edge with a brush, with a soft brush. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just slightly go around this edge. I want the other edges to be straight and sharp, but this one here, I want to be a transition. So I'm going to just like erase a little bit from the selection, and I'm going to click again in edit, quick mask mode, and then I'm going to actually paint there very slightly. I'm going to hide the selection, like just like that. See, if I really do it like it's it really gets lost, the edge, right? So, but we don't want to overdo it. So just a little bit to just push the lid forward. So, and then another place that you actually need a light, and usually this is a hard edge light because very hard polished material and reflective materials have sharp edge highlights, like the eyes. The eyes have like tears, so they are really highly reflective. So you can do something like this, and then you have like already the light hitting in the iris. And then this part is kind of like done. We have our basic light, right? Basically, this is your portrait. Now everything else is just After Effects. Now it's just Photoshop magic. So I'm going to walk you through it quickly, and you'll see. Color correction. See, this, look at this change here. It looks very different, but it's really almost nothing there. So let me just show you how it goes. So this is what you have. Like this is how I just have occlusion, shadow, a little bit of ambient that I actually don't need. If I want to, I can just take it away, and a little bit of light, right? So this is what we where we are now. So, but it's still kind of like hair face for me looks a little bit desaturated. So I want to just like, because this is stylized, I want to enhance it a little bit. So what I do is I create a new layer. I set it to overlay. Remember that overlay like hypes up the saturation. That's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to my skin selection, which is now very handy, and I'm going to hide it. And now is the time to just pick colors, and you have to try out stuff. Like sometimes it's not cool. Like usually to warm up the skin tone to make it redder, actually it's kind of like purple, like a grayish purple, because if you do it too saturated, it goes crazy, and you don't want that. So what you want is kind of like here in the gray zone, but purplish, and then you, oh, this is nice, I like this one. And then you kind of like, oh, okay, let's just make the whole face a little bit like nicer, like redder. But also we don't want like a red face, so remember that the head and like the face have like zones of color. Let's go for a bit like maybe more yellowish somewhere in some places. This is just for, this is the part where you just experiment a little bit. You just try out stuff and go back and yeah, I like this, I like that. And then for the hair, let's try out, what about this? Yeah, this is nothing. You can go purplish, like yeah, like this. Or you can go yellowish. So you can change the temperature of the hair a little bit. I don't go that crazy, and let me show you my layer. This is the actual color correction that I did. Like I noticed, for instance, like the dress was really looking like dull and dirty, like muddy. So look at this. See, it's kind of like grayish, you know? So what I did is like, oh, I can see that hair shadows in the dress have some red into it, right? So that's what I did. I just like tried to push it into the red direction. So this is very specific on the reference. So you have to be observant of what you are studying and then enhance it or take it away. So that's color correction. And the final touch is the highlights. And for the highlights, I haven't found any adjustment layer that actually have so much like really brightness. So I just like create a new layer and I just paint. I just pick the color from the eye globe and pick a hard edge brush, and I just basically, let me do it. I just do this. I mean, whoops, okay. What did I do? Okay. And that's that. You don't have to, you don't have to think so much about it. So that's your, basically, let me just go back to the original one. This is what you should have at the end, basically, right? So let me just, for the moment, delete all these layers. I'm going to delete this so you don't get distracted. So these are my layers so far. Let me just show it to you. So these are the lines, and then I have a silhouette. On top of it, I put things on, so until I'm happy with my color base, and then I build occlusion, and then at this point, I don't need the lines anymore. I hide them, and then I go on, and I just build on top of it values and values, and then lights. Here, I added like a second highlight to just pump up a little bit more, like as I said, like the cheekbone and the forehead, and then just color correction, and then the highlight. And this is where I ended. So apart from here, you can now do more stuff. Like for instance, like you can make it, you can add effects. Let's go to, this is just play around and discover things or not. You can go to color lookup, for instance, and you can say, okay, color lookup, let me try crisp winter. And now it looks kind of like, everything looks like bluish. It kind of harmonizes the lights and makes everything looks like bluish. And it looks nice. It's not what I want, but it does look nice. You can have fall colors and everything goes like really orangey. Or you can have like moonlight and now it's dark. And you can say, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it like night. But what I'm going to do is I'm still going to kind of like, I want some part of a face to have just like a highlight, you know, like, I don't know, like it's like some light is hitting her, you know. Okay, let's just say that there's like there's an open door and she's like peeking through it, and the light just goes through it. This is just crazy selection, so it's gonna be horrible, but bear with me, please. It's kind of like this, and then you have like some something like this. So it's kind of dispersed a little bit, and maybe I don't know here. And then you just change the whole thing. The color situation of the whole thing is different now. I mean, I don't think this is finished. You have to work a little bit more on it, but you can use it as a base, and then you can just like play around with stuff and just do your thing. You know, you can have like a neon light. Okay, let's create a crazy light here. Like let's go crazy. This thing. Fill. Oh my god. Mask it quickly, and invert the mask. Whew. Okay. So I'm going to select the silhouette because I don't want to change, like I don't want to paint the background. Select, click, and control. I'm going to hide it and say, you know what? Let's just do like something like weird edge, and then maybe where's the side of the face? Where are you? Side of the face. Like some of this lighting is kind of like hitting here, and also like here. You can do anything basically with this kind of like workflow. You just have to be patient, and when you finish your base, you can start like trying out different light situations. So this is in essence the workflow. I'm going to ask some of your questions if you have any. I hope you actually learned something today, and you can actually try out. I don't know if you render like the same the flat color version that I gave you. If you did, please, if you want to, send it to me to my email. If you don't want to make it public, and I can give you feedback, or you can actually post it on Instagram and tag me, and then I can, if you want to, I can give you some feedback, or I can share it, however you want. So you can make them, import them, export them. Color lookup tables are universal. Yes, that's the thing. I'm trying out some things in Fresco, and it works. So yep. Can you guys, like, I didn't see any question actually. It's just like awesome stuff. Thank you guys. Like you're very kind. I know this can be boring and like dragging. The whole thing, like this portrait took me, I think like 3.5 hours, almost 4 hours. So it took patience, and it took like one thing. Let me just show you a little bit, like one more thing that I did actually. At the end of it, I added this rake in the shadows and in the lights. I just did it when I finished. I was like, you know what? I'm going to be like in this layer. I'm going to blend with the rake, with this kind of crazy, because this rake is really rough. Like you can see, this rake is sharp. There's no transition there. So I was like taking the value from here and doing this, and you can also take it from here and doing this, and you can make quickly the whole thing look like it is made with a rake, you know. So that's the beauty of it. That's the magic of this workflow. You can really, once you have a base, you can do a lot of stuff. You have to just try out, experiment, and throw away what you don't like and keep what you like and make your own workflow, because that's ultimately what it's my intention, just to give you tools that you can use in your own stuff. So how do you try to evolve your style for workflow over time? Or do you think it comes naturally? I think it comes with repetition. Like the more you draw, the more you will try out stuff, and the more you will like discover little things. I remember when I discovered that you could paint in the mask not just with black or white, but you can actually just like pick like the gray and just like blend in the mask. I was like, I have to use this now. I have to use this, and then I changed a little bit my workflow, and then I accidentally I was doing for one portrait, I was doing the selection for the eyelids, for the occlusion, and I kind of like pressed the brush too hard, and it was like, I kind of like this graphical just like selection and then soft edge, hard edge thingy, and I was like, I'm going to try this portrait just using selection. So here's the thing: when you put yourself like limitations, this kind of creates a visual language. So you can do that. You can like say one day, you know what, I'm only going to use selection and soft brush. You restrain yourself. You create like a minefield for yourself. So try out stuff. You know, just like put yourself goals and limitations, like or just like, for instance, like I just want to I'm going to draw with only selection tool and hard lines, no soft lines. Just all the silhouettes of a drawing is going to be hard lines. You can do it. Let's see what happens. You know, maybe you discover that you don't like it, but at least you tried. So that's how I think style evolves. You have to draw a lot. You have to try out a lot of stuff and do a lot of shitty stuff, and then you can extract good things from the shitty stuff too. You know, good lessons. So I don't know what else to say. What can I? So some questions are about design and how. Yeah, well, even the box is not boring. Like, I don't want you to focus too much on my drawing process, because truly this is the most personal part of the whole thing. Like, and I'm not so self-aware of my drawing process. I just draw a lot, and I like certain things, and I don't like certain things, and then I just take it away. And I think it has a lot of influence from probably a lot of anime and some artists that I actually like. But I'm also a graphic designer, so I tend to simplify things. Like if I see uh, a leaf that is kind of like organic and it has like a lot of like wriggly shapes, I just do this. Like, it is my nature to just simplify shapes because I study graphic design and I tend to simplify things. It's actually super hard for me to do over complicated like little shapes because I just kind of like I do this. It comes natural to me to do that. So, but that is very personal. So, and I don't want to influence your style in that sense. I want to just give you tools so you can use them in your stuff. Tomorrow I'm going to be drawing other characters and portraits, but I'm going to just go faster, and I'm going to show you how you can either render a super cute, super stylized like creature or face or like character, and with the same workflow, So, or just a rough, loose character. But you'll see how much different they will look, and they will be done with the same workflow. So tomorrow it's not about teaching you the workflow. Today, I really hope you learn the workflow. Tomorrow we're going to just play with it and just show you how flexible it is and how versatile it actually is. Because I use it all the time and I create the most different things with this workflow. And I have friends who also use it, and they create super different stuff because they have a different style. So about using references. ¿Qué no te gusta de tu How do you make the channels? Do you paint sometimes without using reference? Do you paint sometimes without using reference? I do. Sometimes I just doodle. When I'm doodling, I'm just like writing down what is in my brain, like just painting. Here's the thing about painting without reference for me. Like some people have really good memory. Some people have like a really good mental library of things, Like I would say the best example of that, like the most extreme example of Kim Jong-gi. Like you can tell like he has like a huge library in his head of things, A great memory and a great power. I would say superpower of visualization, I don't have like such a good memory. My memory like really sucks. So when I start doodling, my brain gets lazy, and I just kind of like draw 4 or 5 type of faces like with little variations. So they are not that interesting. So even when I'm doing character design, I usually use a reference. I usually research a lot and check a lot of like real people, because real people are way more interesting than the things in my head, at least. Some people have like really interesting things going on in their head, but not me. So how do you make the channels for all of them? How do you make the channels for all of them to be involved and no overlap? I don't understand the question so well. You mean how do I create channels that are like selections? You mean selections that are like touching each other but not overlapping each other? I create big selections. Let me show you. So what I do is I create first like this selection. Let's say, right? I have this selection, and then I use the lasso tool and I just like go like this. Now I'm going to take away the ear, and I'm going to take away the neck by hand. This is not magic. This is just okay. I'm going to take away the neck, and now I have the face, and I save the selection. And when I save the selection, which is this one here, what I do is I click skin, and then I Control Alt click face, and I go here, and now I have the ear and the neck separately. So what I do is I just, with the lasso tool again, I take away the ear, and now I have the neck. But there's an earring here, so what I do is like my earring is I think here in this layer. I click Control Alt click here, and now I deselected that part, so now I have the real neck, right? And now I save the neck, and so on and so on. That's what I do. I just like, for creating this selection here, what I did was I took the face and I said, this is when your drawing comes handy. Look at this. These are my lines. Let me just take away this for a moment. Do you see this line here and this line here and these little lines here? Those are markers for me because I know it's like me from the past sending myself a message to the future me that is going to be rendering. It's like remember that you're going to have like a change of plane here. So that's like a marker for me. So then I just do this. I don't care about the eyebrow. The eyebrow hair for me is not information. And then this, and then something like this, and then I save the side of the face, and it's just little by little. You just have like a macro selection, take away, and then you select the big one, take away the small one, and then you have the rest. And that's how they do not overlap. But I would say overlapping sometimes can be your friend. I remember I did a study of a Bobby Chu training exercise, like a draw this in 90 minutes kind of thing challenge. And I didn't save any selection, so everything I did just with a new selection, and they were like a lot of mistakes and overlapping, and it was actually kind of interesting. I really liked the effect, and I used it again. So probably tomorrow I'm going to use it in the demo. So that's how you do it. Ta-da. Do you use the lasso tool for a specific reason or just feels comfortable? I think it's time saving. Don't worry, it's safe. But yes, that happens a lot. I use the lasso tool. I started using more and more the lasso tool because it was more and more comfortable to do it. Like if you don't do it, you have to spend a lot of time just painting. So yeah, lasso tool is easier, it's faster, If you save selection, then it will save you a lot of time. So, okay, I think I'm done. I think my voice is about to break. Please, if you render the same file with post it, send it to me via email, tag me. But if you also did your own thing, your own drawing, and you render it, please also post it and tag me, and I can, if you want to, I can give you feedback. I don't want to give anyone like unwanted feedback, so let me know, and I can help you. And if you have any specific questions, please just ask me. You DM me in Instagram, and I will happily answer you. So I think that's that for the moment. I'm really tired. My voice is really tired, and I hope that tomorrow I still have some left, so I can go on and have the other demo. So I really hope you guys learned today. I really hope you will walk away with some tools that you can use. Please try them. If you just like see the video and you don't try them, you will forget them super quickly. Because like, you need to do it and do it a lot so you can like, it really sticks with you. So anything else? I would say please check the Lightbox Expo schedule. There are a lot of people there that I'm actually now going to go and just watch other presentations because there's like this thing is packed with top tier artists like really interesting people with a lot of insight and a lot of experience. So I would totally advise you to just go there and check other stuff because it's really worth it. So that's all for me today. If you want to, I can. If you want to join tomorrow, I can see you tomorrow. It's gonna be a bit later. It's gonna be at 11 p.m. European time. So that is that. It was really a pleasure. You have been super nice and very kind, as I can see in the comments. Too kind, I would say. I really hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I really did enjoy it. So see you around, I guess, and have a nice day.